All righty. Good afternoon, Carrie. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for asking. Carrie, I would love for you to just simply kickstart our interview and tell me a little bit about your professional experience.
Sure. So I have worked in an HR role for about 15 years in a manufacturing environment. Almost every role has been in a manufacturing environment. And so I love that. And that would consist of, processing payroll if that was the task at hand, or benefits administration, workers' compensation, whether that's filing the claim or taking the employee to seek treatment. Yeah. And then of course, the other aspects of, HR, the day to day, sometimes, we have to change our hats and answer phones or, you know, answer the phones or, greet customers coming in. It just depends on, the role and the environment. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you for that introduction. And you said it best as well. I have your resume pulled up here. One of your first really human resources positions goes back to 2009 as a human resources coordinator. You've been able to work your way up to, in the human resources world, so a human resources specialist, and so on
Right.
and so forth. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned payroll a little bit as well during your introduction. Tell me a little bit about your experience when it comes down to payroll.
So, in the beginning of my career in 2000, between 2008 and 13, I was
Mhm.
actually processing payroll. So, from the timesheets to making sure the timesheets are approved with the managers and making, those communicating those needs to managers directly, missing punches, things like that, to processing the payroll, sending it to ADP. It was my responsibility then to receive the file back, review for anything that may have been missed and accuracy, and then sending that final payroll file to ADP or Paychecks at that time. Um, since then, it's been a little more just timesheets, making sure they're approved. But I would certainly enjoy a position again where I could process the payroll fully
Absolutely.
because it was so exciting. But yeah, so and at that time, and in addition to payroll processing, it was my responsibility to upload expense reporting, and then from there, after payroll's processed, uploading that file to, say, the 401k website. I think now there's mostly carrier connections where all of that's a little more automatic, but it was a lot more manual back then. But I certainly loved processing that payroll. It was a challenge, but it was a good challenge. So, and that was for approximately 200 employees back then. But as far as like timesheets and making sure those were taken care of for about 300 employees.
Oh, wow, amazing. And was that on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis?
That was biweekly. And then as like timesheets since then have been, it kind of varies from depending on the company that I was working for, it could have been biweekly or weekly.
Okay, perfect,
So
perfect.
some of
So
both, right.
awesome, awesome. That was my next question here was, do you have experience with the weekly and the bi-weekly payroll? So amazing in itself. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, the laws, regulations as well. So tell me a little bit about your experience or even compliance. Tell me a little bit about your experience when it comes down to that.
Oh, sure. Like, so making sure that employees are not working more than what they should according to the FLSA, as far as, making sure that depending on the company. So I worked with Valmont, they're actually a federal contractor. And so because they're utility poles, and so making sure we're meeting that minimum wage, which is different than the actual minimum wage federally, and then of course based on the state. So that was a little bit different. That was exciting as well, just kind of keeping up with that because it was a little bit of a higher pay rate. Um, and yeah, so just making sure all of those things were followed, and of course staying in compliance. And then the other compliance part of that, maybe not so much FLSA related, or just the human resources like training, annual trainings, making sure your harassment and other compliance type trainings are completed annually and with new hires and onboarding. And the onboarding process, I'm sorry, as a new hire and annually as a continuing employee. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for walking me through that there, Carrie. Now, we know that being in the HR world, you have to maintain things confidential. So walk me through your best practice when you're handling or even, disposing of documents like I-9 or even medical accommodations. So how do you go about your best practices with that, with the handling and the sorting of it?
Right. So just following the record retention policies and making sure staying in alignment with that. As far as like employee files, making sure they're always in a locked cabinet. And whatever the company policy is on that, which typically is a locked filing cabinet behind a locked office door. And then as far as the I-9s, exactly, I can't recall off the top of my head, but I would, always keep that compliance, making sure that I'm in
Yes.
compliance with that. But yeah, that's
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you again for sharing that. Now, Carrie, I know that, well, we know that you're looking for a new position. So when you look at the next company that you're wanting to join, what would be the ideal scenario for you?
so a company that's close to home, and which this is a good fit for me as far as close to home. Um, and then of course the pay and the pay range fits well. And then just possibly potentially a company that I can retire from, and that has great benefits. And it sounds like it fits all of my boxes so far. So or checks all of my boxes anyway. But yeah, and somewhere that I can grow my career, because they don't really, not that I don't like sitting still when we need to sit still, and kind of our role and learning that. But then once we do and we master it, growing and learning more and moving and in my career, in an upward manner. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with you on that part. I think one of the good things, or one of the things that I remember from a mentor that I had growing up, was always remain a student. I think if you remain a student, it'll get you to where you want to be, because you're always learning. With learning comes progression, moving up as well. So completely agree with you on that, Carrie. My last question for you is, when were you looking to start a new position? How soon?
Within the next few weeks would be ideal. But I'm available to start, within the next 2 weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks. But yeah,
Yeah.
so soon would be great. I love the position that I'm in, with the family members. But it's just getting back to kind of what I know my skill set is, and getting back into a position like that would actually be great for me. So
Yeah.
I have enjoyed my time there, though. I cannot complain at all about that, but it's time for me to get back into what I know best, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And look forward to helping you with your journey to getting you to where you want to be, and allowing you to grow within the company. I think the company that you're applying to, they definitely have what you're seeking as far as the growth of mobility. And you can always use your expertise in a role such as this. So that's also exciting in the midst of it all. Now, Carrie, I want to go ahead and just thank you overall for the time that we spent this afternoon going over your experience. I am going to go ahead and conclude our interview, but I would love to ask you if you can just stay on with me really quickly so we can chat. Thank you
Absolutely.
so
Thank you
much.
so much.
You're welcome.